The lawyer's voice died mid-sentence when the writer came into view. Tessa Bennett stood frozen on the porch of Whisper Ranch, her late uncle's will still warm in her gloved hand, watching the stranger dismount with the easy grace of a man who lived in the saddle. The trail boss, she realized with a sinking heart. The one her uncle had hired 3 weeks before his death. The one she had no money to pay. Roscoe Carver tied his horse to the rail and climbed the steps without asking permission. Up close, his face was all hard lines and sun damage, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Blue, she noticed. The kind of blue that seemed to look straight through polite lies. He touched the brim of his hat. Your uncle hired me to run 200 head to the railhead at Silver Creek. I brought my crew. We camp tonight and move out at dawn. The lawyer, a thin man named Whitmore, cleared his throat. Miss Bennett has just inherited the property. I am afraid the financial situation is somewhat complicated. Roscoe's gaze never left Tessa's face. Complicated how? She felt her spine stiffen. It was the same tone men always used when they assumed a woman could not manage accounts. Mr. Carver, my uncle's estate includes certain debts that must be settled before any cattle sale can proceed. I am working with the bank to determine the best course. His expression did not change, but something flickered in those blue eyes. Working with the bank. That means you do not have the cash to pay my crew. I did not say that. You did not have to. He glanced at Whitmore, then back to her. How much does the drive pay on delivery? Whitmore shuffled papers. $3,000, less Mr. Carver's percentage and crew wages. Approximately $1,800 net to the estate. And how much do you owe? Tessa's jaw tightened. That is not your concern. It is if I am about to work 6 weeks for nothing. Roscoe folded his arms. I brought 8 men and a cook. They expect to be paid. So do I. You will be. She met his stare without flinching. When the cattle sell, if they sell. He let the words hang. Silver Creek railhead closes for the season in 7 weeks. Miss out on that window, and you are stuck with 200 head through winter, eating through your grass and your money. Assuming you have any money. Heat crawled up her neck. Mr. Carver, I am perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. Are you? His tone was flat. Because from where I stand, you just inherited a failing ranch, a debt you would not name, and a cattle drive you cannot afford to cancel. That does not sound like capable. That sounds like desperate. The word hit like a slap. Tessa felt her control crack. You know nothing about me. I know you are a doctor. He nodded toward the black bag at her feet. I know you are from back east. Because no woman raised out here would wear riding gloves to a porch meeting in May. I know you did not expect me today, because you are scared. And I know, whatever you are running from, it is not as far behind as you think. Silence dropped over the porch like a weight. Whitmore looked between them, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. Tessa's heart hammered against her ribs. How could a stranger see so much in 5 minutes? She forced her voice level. What do you want, Mr. Carver? To do the job I was hired for. He unfolded his arms. Your uncle gave me his word. I will honor that, even if he is gone. But I need to know you will not fold the first time the drive gets hard. Because it will get hard. Weather, river crossings, rustlers, injuries. You want this ranch to survive, you need that sale. Which means you need me. She hated that he was right. I understand the stakes. Do you? He stepped closer, lowering his voice so Whitmore could not hear. Because a woman who shows up with a medical degree and a secret does not usually understand ranch survival. This is not a city hospital. This is Bitter Valley. People here do not trust outsiders. They will test you. The railroad will pressure you to sell. And if you have debts, they will come calling the second they smell weakness. Tessa's throat tightened. How do you know about the railroad? Everyone knows. Roscoe's expression softened. Just barely. They have been buying up every ranch in the valley for 6 months. Your uncle held out. That is why he hired me. He knew this drive was his last chance to prove the ranch could pay. Now it is your last chance. Question is, are you tough enough to see it through? She wanted to throw him off the porch. She wanted to scream that she had survived worse than a cattle drive, that she had walked away from a life that should have been perfect, because the man she loved had betrayed her in ways Roscoe Carver could not imagine. But she could not say any of that. Not to a stranger. Not to anyone. Instead, she lifted her chin. I will see it through. Then we have a deal. He held out his hand. You ride with the drive. No sitting safe at the ranch while my crew does the work. You want them to respect you? You earn it. Same as anyone. Tessa stared at his outstretched hand. It was calloused, scarred, and steady. The hand of a man who had never run from anything in his life. She thought of her fiancé, Marcus. His hands had been smooth. His promises had been smooth. And every word had been a lie. She took his hand. The grip was firm, warm, and far too intimate for a business arrangement. Deal. Roscoe held her gaze for one beat longer than necessary, then released her hand and stepped back. We move at dawn. Bring sturdy clothes, a bedroll, and that medical bag. Leave the dresses. I know how to pack for travel, Mr. Carver. Good. He turned and descended the steps with the same unhurried confidence he had arrived with. Because the trail does not care about your pride. It only cares if you can keep up. He mounted his horse in one smooth motion and rode toward the cluster of men setting up camp near the barn. Tessa watched him go, her hand still tingling from his grip. Whitmore coughed delicately. Miss Bennett, are you certain this is wise? Mr. Carver has a reputation as a hard man, and the trail is no place for a lady of your education. Tessa folded the will and tucked it into her pocket. Mr. Whitmore, I did not come to Bitter Valley to be a lady. I came to disappear. And if that means spending 6 weeks on a cattle drive with a man who sees too much, then that is what I will do. But your debts will be paid when the cattle sell. She picked up her medical bag. Now, if you will excuse me, I have packing to do. She walked into the ranch house and closed the door before he could ask more questions. Inside, the air was cool and still. Her uncle's furniture, her uncle's books, her uncle's life, all left to a niece he had not seen in 15 years. A niece who had written to him in desperation 6 months ago, begging for a place to hide. And he had given it to her. No questions, no judgment. Just a telegram with an address and the words, "Come home." Now he was gone, and she was alone with a failing ranch, $8,000 in hidden debt to a man she prayed would never find her, and a trail boss who looked at her like he could see straight through to the fear she carried. Tessa set the medical bag on the kitchen table and opened the account book she had been avoiding since the funeral. The numbers were worse than she had imagined. Her uncle had mortgaged the ranch to cover medical bills in his final year. The bank held the note. If the drive failed, she would lose everything. And if Marcus found her, she would lose more than property. She closed the book and looked out the window. Roscoe Carver was walking through the herd with his men, checking hooves and brands. Even from a distance, she could see the way the crew moved around him. Not with fear, but with respect. He was the kind of man who led by example, not by words. The kind of man Marcus had pretended to be. Tessa turned away from the window and began to pack. Sturdy skirt, split for riding. Plain shirtwaist, wool vest, oilskin coat. Her uncle's old hat, battered and sweat-stained. She folded everything into a canvas bag, then added the medical supplies. Bandages, carbolic acid, laudanum, scissors, needle and thread. On a cattle drive, injuries were not a question of if, but when. At the bottom of her trunk, wrapped in oilcloth, was the one thing she could not leave behind. She unwrapped it slowly, her hands shaking. $3,000 in cash, stolen from Marcus the night she ran. The money he had extorted from his clients. The money he had planned to use to disappear before the law caught him. The money he thought she knew nothing about. She had taken it because it was the only weapon she had. And because he deserved to lose everything, just as she had. But it was not enough. It would never be enough. Marcus had connections, resources, and a vindictive streak that made him dangerous. If he traced her to Bitter Valley, the cash would not save her. Only distance could. Distance, and a new name she had not quite grown into yet. Tessa wrapped the money again and buried it at the bottom of her bag, beneath the medical supplies. Then she locked the trunk, pocketed the key, and carried her things out to the porch. The sun was setting, painting the valley in shades of amber and rust. Roscoe's camp was a neat circle of bedrolls and saddlebags around a small fire. The cook, a grizzled man with a limp, was setting up a tripod over the flames. The crew sat in easy silence, cleaning tack and sharpening knives. Roscoe looked up as she approached. He was crouched by the fire, pouring coffee into a battered tin cup. Packed light. Good. Tessa set her bag down. Where do I sleep? He pointed to a spot on the far edge of the circle. Upwind of the herd, downwind of the men. You will want earplugs. Cattle do not sleep quiet. She nodded and spread her bedroll, acutely aware of 8 pairs of eyes watching her every move. None of the men spoke, but she could feel their judgment. A woman on the trail was bad luck. Everyone knew that. Roscoe stood and walked over, coffee in hand. He did not offer her any. They will test you tomorrow. Probably try to spook your horse or leave you behind at the first river crossing. Do not let them. And if I cannot keep up, then you walk back to the ranch and sell to the railroad like everyone else. His tone was matter of fact. I do not carry passengers, Miss Bennett. Out here, you pull your weight or you go home. Understood. She met his eyes. Anything else? Yes. He took a slow sip of coffee. Whatever you are running from, leave it behind tonight. Once we are on the trail, I need your head in the game. No distractions. No secrets that will get someone killed. Her pulse jumped. I do not know what you mean. Yes, you do. He lowered his voice. You are scared of something, and it is not this drive. I do not need to know what. But I need to know It would not follow us out there. Because if trouble comes looking for you, it will find all of us. Tessa's throat tightened. It would not. You sure about that? She wanted to tell him the truth. That Marcus was probably still in Philadelphia, dealing with the fallout of his exposed fraud. That she had covered her tracks carefully, changed her name on every document, paid cash for the train west. That no one in Bitter Valley knew who she really was. But she could not be sure. And Roscoe was right. Out on the trail, there was nowhere to hide. I am sure, she said quietly. No one is coming for me. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. Get some sleep. We ride at first light. He walked back to the fire, leaving her alone with her bedroll and her lies. Tessa lay down fully clothed, staring up at the stars. The night air smelled like sage and smoke. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote howled. She thought about Marcus, about the day she had found the ledger in his office, the one that detailed every bribe, every forgery, every client he had ruined. About the moment she realized the man she loved did not exist. He had been a mask, a performance, a trap she had walked into with her eyes wide open, and she had almost married him. The humiliation still burned. She had been so certain, so stupidly certain, that she knew him, that their love was real. It had taken a single piece of paper to shatter everything. Now she was here, lying under stars she did not recognize, trusting her survival to a man she had met 6 hours ago. A man who saw through her in minutes. A man who scared her almost as much as Marcus did, but for entirely different reasons. Roscoe Carver did not lie. He did not perform. What you saw was what you got, hard edges and all. And that honesty was more dangerous than any mask, because it made her want to trust him. And trust was the one thing Tessa Bennett could not afford. She closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe slowly. Tomorrow, she would prove she belonged. Tomorrow, she would show Roscoe and his crew that she was not some fragile Easterner who would break at the first hardship. Tomorrow, she would be strong enough to survive. But tonight, in the dark, she let herself be afraid. Dawn came cold and blue. Tessa woke to the sound of the cook banging a spoon against a pot, calling the crew to breakfast. She rolled up her bedroll quickly, finger-combing her hair and pinning it tight. No time for vanity. No room for weakness. The men ate in silence, shoveling down beans and hardtack with the efficiency of soldiers. Roscoe handed her a tin plate without comment. She ate standing, watching the herd stir and shift in the early light. One of the younger drovers, a lanky boy with red hair, sidled up beside her. Name is Eli, miss. Trail is rough for women. You need help with your saddle, just holler. She smiled tightly. Thank you, Eli. I can manage. His grin was slow and skeptical. If you say so. Roscoe's voice cut across the camp. Eli, get your gear sorted. We are burning daylight. The boy scurried off. Roscoe walked over, adjusting his hat. Your horse is the bay mare, third from the left. She is steady, but stubborn, like her rider. Tessa shot him a look. You do not know me well enough to say that. Do not I. He swung into his saddle with easy grace. Let's find out. The drive moved out in a slow, churning wave of hooves and dust. Tessa kept her mare steady near the middle of the column, where Roscoe had positioned her. Not close enough to lead, not far enough back to be forgotten. A test, she realized. He was watching to see if she could hold formation. She could. Years of riding in Pennsylvania parks had not prepared her for this, but she learned fast. Watch the cattle, not the horse. Anticipate breaks before they happened. Stay calm when a steer bolted sideways, and trust the drovers to bring it back in line. By midday, her thighs ached, and her throat was raw with dust. But she did not complain. She did not ask for water. She kept pace. Roscoe rode up beside her as they crossed a shallow creek. "You ride better than I expected." Tessa kept her eyes forward. "I had a good teacher." "Who?" "My father. Before he died." She hesitated, then added, "He believed women should be as capable as men." Most people thought he was crazy. Was he? No. She glanced at Roscoe. He was right. His expression softened, just for a moment. Then the mask slid back into place. "We camp in 2 hours. There is a box canyon ahead with good grass and water. If we are lucky, no one else claimed it. And if we are not lucky, then we keep moving." He spurred his horse forward, leaving her in the dust. Tessa watched him go. Every time she thought she saw something human beneath the hard exterior, he shut it down, like he was afraid of being seen. Or afraid of seeing her. Either way, it made him difficult to read. And that made him dangerous. The canyon was empty when they arrived. Roscoe set the night watch rotation and disappeared into the rocks to scout ahead. Tessa unsaddled her mare, rubbed her down, and checked her hooves. When she looked up, the cook was watching her. "You know horses," he said. His voice was rough as gravel. "I know enough." "Good." He handed her a burlap sack. "Then you can help me gather firewood. The others are busy with the herd." Tessa took the sack without argument. She followed him into the scrub, picking up deadfall and twisted roots. The cook moved with a pronounced limp, favoring his left leg. "Old injury?" she asked. "Old stupidity." He grunted. "Broke it in 3 places during a stampede 10 years back. Healed crooked. Roscoe lets me cook because I cannot ride anymore. That is kind of him." The cook snorted. "Roscoe does not do kind. He does practical. I am a good cook, and I do not complain. That is all he cares about." Tessa frowned. "You have known him a long time." "Long enough." The cook straightened, wincing. "He is a hard man, miss. But he is fair. You pull your weight, he will move heaven and earth to protect you. You lie to him, he will cut you loose without a second thought." The words landed like a stone in her chest. "Good to know." "Is it?" The cook gave her a long look. "Because you are lying about something. I can see it. And if I can see it, Roscoe already knows." Tessa's hands tightened on the sack. "I am not lying. Maybe not outright. But you are not telling the whole truth either." The cook shrugged. "Not my business. But out here, secrets get people killed. You remember that." He limped back toward camp, leaving her alone in the scrub. Tessa stood frozen, her heart pounding. How many people could see through her? How long before someone asked the question she could not answer? She gathered the rest of the wood in silence and carried it back to camp. Roscoe was already there, crouched by the fire, studying a worn map. He looked up as she approached. Find anything interesting out there? Just firewood. She set the sack down. Your cook thinks I am hiding something. He is right. Roscoe folded the map. But he also knows when to keep his mouth shut. Unlike some people. Meaning me. Meaning you are terrible at pretending everything is fine. He stood, brushing dust off his coat. You want to survive out here, you need a better mask. Or you need to stop wearing one. She bristled. I am not pretending. Yes, you are. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You flinch every time someone asks a direct question. You watch the horizon like you are expecting someone. And you sleep with one hand on your medical bag like it is the only thing keeping you safe. That is not the behavior of a woman with nothing to hide. Tessa's breath caught. You have been watching me. I watch everyone. His gaze was steady, unreadable. It is my job. And right now, you are my biggest liability. Then maybe you should send me back. Maybe I should. He tilted his head. But I would not. You know why? No. Because you are not a quitter. Whatever you are running from, you would rather face a cattle drive than go back to it. That tells me you are tougher than you look. And I need tough. So I am going to give you a choice. You can keep pretending, and I will keep pretending I believe you. Or you can trust me with the truth, and I will help you carry it. Tessa stared at him. The offer was impossible. Trust was the thing that had destroyed her. And yet, standing this close, seeing the honesty in his eyes, she wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that not every man was Marcus. That someone could know the truth and not use it against her. But wanting was not the same as trusting. I cannot, she whispered. Something flickered in his expression. Disappointment, maybe. Or understanding. All right. Then we do this your way. But if trouble comes, do not say I did not warn you. He walked away, leaving her by the fire. Tessa sank onto a log, her legs shaking. She had almost told him, almost unloaded the whole ugly story. And that terrified her more than anything Marcus had ever done. Because if she told Roscoe the truth, he would see her. Not the mask she wore, not the doctor she pretended to be. Just Tessa, broken and afraid and drowning in debt she could never repay. And she was not ready for that. The next 3 days passed in a blur of dust, heat, and exhaustion. Tessa learned to read the herd's mood, to spot a sick steer before it slowed the column, to tie a bandana over her mouth when the wind kicked up. She learned which drovers respected her, and which ones were waiting for her to fail. And she learned that Roscoe Carver was everywhere. Riding point, checking strays, settling disputes, scouting water. He never seemed to sleep, never seemed to falter. He was the center that held everything together, and his crew knew it. On the 4th night, she was cleaning a gash on Eli's arm when Roscoe crouched beside her. How bad? Superficial. She threaded the needle. He caught it on barbed wire during the crossing. It would heal clean if he keeps it dry. Good. Roscoe glanced at Eli. You will live, kid. Eli grinned weakly. Thanks, boss. Tessa worked in silence, her hands steady despite the firelight and the audience. She had stitched dozens of wounds in her years as a doctor, but this felt different. Out here, there was no hospital to fall back on. No colleagues to consult. Just her. Her training, and the fragile hope that she was good enough. She tied off the last stitch and wrapped the wound in clean linen. Keep it covered. Change the bandage every day. If it turns red or starts to smell, tell me immediately. Eli nodded and wandered off. Roscoe stayed. You are good at that, he said quietly. I should be. I trained for 6 years. Where? Philadelphia. She packed the medical supplies back into her bag, not looking at him. Women's Medical College. Graduated top of my class. Then why are you here? The question hung between them, sharp and unavoidable. Tessa's hand stilled. Because Philadelphia does not want female doctors. And the men who do hire us expect us to be grateful for the scraps they throw. That is not the whole reason. No. She closed the bag and finally met his eyes. It is not. Roscoe did not push. He just watched her, patient and unreadable. Waiting. She almost told him. Almost said, I ran because the man I loved was a criminal, and I stole his money, and now I am terrified he will find me. But the words stuck in her throat, because saying them out loud would make them real, would make her vulnerable, would give Roscoe power over her, and she had already given one man too much power. I needed a fresh start, she said instead. That is all. Roscoe nodded slowly. Fair enough. But if that fresh start is about to catch up with you, I need to know. Because I cannot protect what I do not see coming. It would not catch up, she lied. I am careful. I hope so. He stood, brushing dust off his knees. Because we are about to hit the hard part. Tomorrow we cross Blackwater Ridge. It is rough country, steep climbs, narrow trails. If anyone is going to crack, it will be there. And I need to know you would not be one of them. I would not. Prove it. He walked away, leaving her alone with the fire and the weight of her lies. Tessa stared into the flames. She had spent 6 months running, 6 months hiding, 6 months convincing herself that distance was the same as safety. But Roscoe was right. Secrets had a way of catching up. And when they did, there was no place to hide on the open trail. She just had to hope that by the time Marcus found her, if he found her, she would be far enough away that it would not matter. Blackwater Ridge was worse than she imagined. The trail was barely a trail, just a narrow ribbon of rock and loose shale clinging to the mountainside. Below, the valley dropped away into shadow. Above, the sky was a hard, brittle blue. The cattle balked at the climb. Roscoe and his crew worked them forward inch by inch, shouting and whistling and cracking ropes. Tessa stayed in the middle, her mare picking her way carefully over the stones. Halfway up, a steer lost its footing. It bellowed and slid backward, crashing into 2 others. The whole herd surged, panicked. Drovers shouted. Horses danced sideways. Hold the line, Roscoe's voice rang out, hard and commanding. Do not let them turn. Tessa pulled her mare back as the cattle pressed forward. Her heart hammered. One wrong move, and the whole herd could stampede, taking half the crew with it. Roscoe rode straight into the chaos. He cut between the panicked steers, his horse moving like an extension of his body. Within seconds, he had the lead animals calmed and moving again. The rest followed. Tessa watched, breathless. It was the most reckless, competent thing she had ever seen. When they crested the ridge, Roscoe circled back to check the crew. Everyone accounted for. His gaze found Tessa. "You all right?" She nodded, still shaken. That was close. That was normal. He dismounted and checked his horse's hooves. "You will see worse before we reach Silver Creek. Worse than a near stampede on a cliff. Worse than that." He straightened, his expression grim. "We are 3 days from the river crossing. That is where most drives lose cattle. And men, if they are careless. So from here on, you stay close. No wandering. No taking risks. Understood?" "Understood." "Good." He swung back into the saddle. "Because I am not losing anyone on my watch. Not even stubborn doctors who think they can handle everything alone." The words landed with unexpected weight. Tessa looked at him, startled. "That almost sounded like you care." "I care about my crew." He met her eyes. "You are part of that now, whether you like it or not." Then he rode ahead, leaving her with a strange, unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest. It was not attraction. Or maybe it was. She could not tell anymore. All she knew was that Roscoe Carver was nothing like Marcus. And that difference was becoming harder to ignore. That night, they camped in a meadow by a stream. The crew was quiet, exhausted from the climb. Tessa washed the dust from her face and arms, then checked the horses for injuries. 2 had thrown shoes. 1 had a strained tendon. She wrapped it carefully and reported to Roscoe. He listened without interrupting, then nodded. "Good work. We will rest here an extra day. Give them time to recover." The crew groaned in relief. Tessa returned to her bedroll and collapsed, her body aching in places she had not known could ache. But she felt something else too. Satisfaction. She had made it over the ridge. She had proven herself, at least a little. Roscoe appeared at the edge of the firelight, carrying 2 tin cups. He handed her one. Coffee. She took it gratefully. "Thank you." He sat down beside her, closer than usual. His shoulder almost brushed hers. "You did well today. I tried not to die. That is the first rule." He took a sip of coffee. "The second rule is, do not let the fear show. You did that too." Tessa stared into her cup. "I was terrified. I know. But you did not freeze. That is what matters." She glanced at him. "Were you scared?" "Always." His voice was quiet. Anyone who says they are not scared on a drive like this is lying or stupid. Fear keeps you sharp. It keeps you alive. Then why do you do it? "Because it is the only thing I am good at." He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw past the hard mask. There was something raw in his eyes. Something lonely. "I have been running cattle since I was 15. It is all I know. All I am." "That is not true. Is not it?" He smiled faintly, without humor. "What else would I be, Miss Bennett? A rancher. A shopkeeper. I do not fit in towns. I do not fit anywhere but the trail." Tessa's chest tightened. She knew that feeling. The sense of being out of place, of wearing a skin that did not quite fit. Maybe that is why we are here. Both of us. Because we do not fit anywhere else. Roscoe studied her for a long moment. Maybe. They sat in silence, drinking bad coffee and listening to the stream. It was the first moment of peace Tessa had felt since leaving Philadelphia. And it scared her, because peace meant letting her guard down. And she could not afford that. But sitting here, with Roscoe beside her, she wanted to stop running, stop hiding, stop pretending she was stronger than she felt. Just for one night, she wanted to be honest. "Roscoe," she said quietly, "can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Do you ever regret it? The life you chose." He was quiet for a long time. Then, every day. "But regret does not change anything. You make a choice, you live with it. That is all there is. What if the choice was not really yours? Then you make a new one." He turned to look at her. "That is what you did, is not it. You made a new choice. Came west. Started over." Tessa's throat tightened. "I tried. Trying is enough." His voice was gentle, almost kind. "You do not have to be perfect, Miss Bennett. You just have to keep going." She wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that survival was enough. That she did not have to carry the weight of her mistakes forever. But the money hidden in her bag, the lies she told every day, the fear that Marcus would find her, all of it whispered that she would never be free. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For not asking." Roscoe smiled. A real smile this time. Small and fleeting, but real. "Everyone has things they do not want to talk about. I figure if you want me to know, you will tell me. Until then, it is none of my business." He stood and drained his coffee. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we push for the river. It is going to be a long day." He walked away, leaving her by the fire. Tessa watched him go, her heart doing something complicated and dangerous. She was starting to trust him, starting to see him not as a stranger or a threat, but as someone who might actually understand. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. The river was a roiling brown snake, swollen with spring runoff. Roscoe stood on the bank, studying the current. His face was grim. "It is high," one of the drovers said. "Maybe too high. We do not have a choice." Roscoe turned to the crew. "We cross now, or we lose the season. Everyone checks their gear. Double check your saddle. If you go in, do not fight the current. Let it carry you downstream and work your way to the bank." "Understood." The crew nodded, their faces tight. Tessa's hands shook as she checked her mare's girth. She had never crossed a river like this. The few streams she had forded on the trail had been shallow, gentle. This was different. This was dangerous. Roscoe rode up beside her. "You can wait on this side. Help the cook bring the wagon across after the herd is through." She met his eyes. "You said no passengers." "I did. But I also said, I do not lose people. And that river is not forgiving. I can do this." "Can you?" His voice was hard. "Because if you panic halfway across, you will drown. And I cannot save you and the herd at the same time." "Then do not save me." She lifted her chin. "Save the herd. That is the job." Roscoe stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, something like respect flickering in his eyes. Stay behind me. Follow my line exactly. Do not deviate. I would not. Good. He spurred his horse toward the river. Let's move. The herd entered the water in a reluctant, bellowing mass. The current grabbed them immediately, pulling them downstream. The drovers shouted and whistled, keeping the cattle moving forward. Roscoe rode into the chaos, his horse plunging chest deep into the brown water. Tessa followed. The cold hit her like a fist. Her mare stumbled, caught by the current. Tessa gripped the saddle horn, her heart in her throat. Do not panic. Do not fall. The mare found her footing and lunged forward. Water surged around Tessa's legs, soaking her skirt, dragging at her boots. She kept her eyes on Roscoe's back, following his path through the churning water. Halfway across, a steer panicked and slammed into her mare. The horse screamed and reared. Tessa lost her grip and fell. The current grabbed her and pulled her under. Water filled her mouth, her nose. She could not breathe, could not see. Her skirt tangled around her legs, dragging her down. Then a hand closed around her wrist and hauled her up. She gasped, choking on water and air. Roscoe's face was inches from hers, his expression fierce. I have got you. His voice cut through the roar of the river. Hold on. She clung to his arm as he dragged her toward his horse. He hauled her up behind him with one arm, the other hand gripping the reins. His horse surged forward, fighting the current. Tessa wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her face against his back, shaking with cold and terror. They reached the far bank, and Roscoe pulled his horse up the slope. The moment they were on solid ground, he dismounted and pulled Tessa down after him. She collapsed onto the grass, coughing up river water. Roscoe crouched beside her. Are you hurt? She shook her head, unable to speak. Damn it. His voice was rough. I told you to stay behind me. I did. Her voice was a rasp. The steer came out of nowhere. I know. He ran a hand through his wet hair. You scared the hell out of me. Tessa looked up at him, startled. His face was pale beneath the tan, his eyes dark with something that looked like fear. Not anger, fear. You jumped in after me, she said. Of course I did. He stood abruptly. What did you think I would do? Let you drown? I thought you said you could not save me and the herd. I lied. He looked away. Now get up. We need to move the herd before they scatter. He walked away. But the tension in his shoulders told her everything. He had been terrified. For her. Tessa pushed herself to her feet, dripping and shaking. Something had shifted in the river. Something she could not name. But she felt it, warm and dangerous, settling in her chest. They camped on the far side of the river, too exhausted to push further. Tessa changed into dry clothes behind the wagon, her hands still shaking. When she emerged, Roscoe was waiting. He handed her a blanket. Wrap up. You are still shivering. I am fine. You are not. He draped the blanket over her shoulders himself. Sit by the fire. Warm up. That is an order. She wanted to argue, but the cold was still deep in her bones. She sat by the fire, pulling the blanket tight. Roscoe sat beside her. Thank you, she said quietly. For pulling me out. Do not thank me. His voice was flat. You should not have been in there in the first place. You said no passengers. I also said, I do not lose people. He looked at her, his expression raw. "Do you have any idea what it would have done to me if you had drowned?" The words hung between them, stark and honest. Tessa's breath caught. "I did not think." "You never do." His jaw tightened. "You just keep pushing, keep proving yourself, like you have got something to atone for. And maybe you do. I do not know. But whatever it is not worth your life." Tessa stared at him. He was right. She had been reckless, driven by the need to prove she was not weak, not fragile, not the woman Marcus had thought she was. But in doing that, she had almost destroyed the one thing she had left. Herself. "I am sorry," she whispered. Roscoe sighed. "I do not want your apology. I want you to stop trying to die." "I am not trying to die." "Then what are you trying to do?" "Survive." Her voice broke. "Just survive." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached out and tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, careful, and it undid something inside her. "You are already surviving," he said quietly. "You do not have to prove anything. Not to me. Not to anyone." Tears pricked her eyes. She blinked them back, but Roscoe saw. He always saw. "Whatever you are running from, it is not here," he said. "It is not chasing you across this river. So maybe it is time to stop running and start living." Tessa could not hold it back anymore. The tears came, hot and silent, streaming down her face. Roscoe did not pull away. He just stayed close, his hand still against her cheek, his presence steady and solid. "I am scared," she whispered. "I am so scared." "I know." His thumb brushed away a tear. "But you do not have to be scared alone." And then, without thinking, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was impulsive, desperate, and entirely honest. For one moment, she stopped running, stopped hiding, stopped pretending. Roscoe froze. Then he kissed her back, his hand sliding into her hair, his other arm pulling her close. It was not gentle. It was fierce and hungry and full of everything neither of them had said. When they finally broke apart, Tessa was breathless. Roscoe rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. "That was a bad idea," he murmured. "Probably. But I am not sorry. Neither am I." She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "What do we do now?" "I do not know." He smiled faintly. "But we will figure it out. Together. Together." The word felt like a promise, a fragile, dangerous promise. But for the first time in months, Tessa wanted to believe it. They sat by the fire until the stars came out, not talking, just being. And for one night, that was enough. The next morning, everything was different and exactly the same. Roscoe was back to his hard, competent self, barking orders and checking the herd. But when his eyes met Tessa's, there was something new there. Something warm. They pushed hard for the next 4 days, making up time lost at the river. The crew noticed the change between them, but said nothing. Out here, what happened between two people was their business, as long as it did not interfere with the drive. And it did not. If anything, Tessa worked harder, determined to prove that the kiss had not made her weak or distracted. Roscoe matched her, keeping his distance during the day but finding her at night. sitting close by the fire, their shoulders brushing. They did not talk about it. They did not need to. The understanding between them was clear. When the drive ended, they would decide what came next. Until then, they focused on survival. On the 10th day, they reached the railroad town of Silver Creek. The railhead was a chaos of pens, buyers, and noise. Roscoe negotiated the sale with a hard-eyed broker, while Tessa waited with the crew. When he returned, his expression was unreadable. Sold. For how much? One of the drovers asked. $3,200. Roscoe glanced at Tessa. Better than expected. You will have enough to clear your debts and keep the ranch running through winter. Relief flooded through her. She had done it. The ranch was safe. She was safe. But before she could celebrate, a man stepped out of the broker's office. Tall, well-dressed, with slicked back hair and a smile that made her blood run cold. Marcus. Tessa, he said smoothly. I have been looking everywhere for you. Her heart stopped. She could not breathe, could not think. He was here. He had found her. Roscoe stepped forward, placing himself between them. Who are you? Marcus's smile widened. I am her fiancé. And I have come to take her home. Roscoe's expression went cold. She does not look engaged. That is because she ran. Marcus's tone was pleasant, reasonable. Took something that did not belong to her. I am here to retrieve it. And her. Tessa found her voice. I am not going anywhere with you. Marcus's smile did not waver. You do not have a choice, darling. You stole $3,000 from me. That is a crime. Unless you return it, I will have you arrested. The crew shifted uneasily. Roscoe did not move. Is that true? Tessa's throat closed. She could lie, but Roscoe would see through it. And Marcus had already poisoned the truth. Yes, she whispered. I took the money. But it was not theft. It was evidence. Evidence of what? Of fraud. She forced herself to meet Marcus's eyes. He stole from his clients, forged documents, ruined families. I found proof and took the money to keep him from running. Marcus laughed. That is a lovely story. Do you have this proof? Tessa hesitated. She had left the ledger in Philadelphia, too dangerous to carry. I did, but not anymore. Marcus stepped closer. So it is your word against mine, and I am a respected lawyer in Philadelphia. You are a disgraced woman who ran away in the night. Who do you think they will believe? Roscoe's hand moved to the gun at his hip. I do not care what they believe in Philadelphia. Out here, she is under my protection. You want her, you go through me. Marcus's smile faded. You do not know what you are getting into, cowboy. Try me. The air crackled with tension. Marcus looked between them, calculating. Then he stepped back. Very well. But this is not over, Tessa. You can run to the ends of the earth, and I will still find you. Because that money is mine. And so are you. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Tessa sagged, her legs barely holding her up. Roscoe caught her arm. Breathe. She tried. Her chest was too tight. He found me. I know. Roscoe's voice was steady. But he does not have you. And he is not going to. You do not understand. She looked up at him, her eyes wild. He always wins. Always. He will find a way to destroy me. Not while I am here. Roscoe's grip tightened. I do not care what he thinks he owns. You are not going back to him. Ever. Tessa wanted to believe him. But Marcus was relentless. And now that he knew where she was, he would not stop. Roscoe pulled her aside, away from the crew. Tell me everything. Now. So she did. She told him about Marcus, about the fraud, about the stolen money hidden in her bag. She told him about the debts, the fear, the months of running. And when she was done, she felt hollow. Exposed. Roscoe listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. You should have told me sooner. I know. Her voice was small. I was scared. Of me. Of trusting anyone. She met his eyes. I trusted Marcus, and he destroyed me. I could not risk it again. Roscoe's expression softened. I am not him. I know that now. But by the time I realized it, I had already lied. And I did not know how to take it back. He reached out and took her hand. You just did. Tessa's eyes burned. What do we do now? We finish the drive. Pay your debts. Then we deal with Marcus. He squeezed her hand. But you are not facing him alone. Not anymore. Why? Her voice broke. Why would you help me? I lied to you. I brought trouble to your crew. You should walk away. I should. Roscoe smiled faintly. But I am not going to. Because somewhere between Bitter Valley and this godforsaken town, I stopped seeing you as a passenger and started seeing you as mine. And I protect what is mine. The words landed like a vow. Tessa stared at him, her heart doing something painful and beautiful. I do not deserve you. Probably not. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. But you are stuck with me anyway. She buried her face in his chest and let herself cry. For the first time since she ran, she was not alone. And that changed everything. They stayed in Silver Creek long enough to settle the sale and pay the crew. Roscoe deposited Tessa's share in the local bank under her name, not her uncle's. Then, he made inquiries about Marcus. The man was staying at the hotel, asking questions about Tessa, about Whisper Ranch, about debts and ownership. He was building a case, gathering ammunition. And he was not leaving. Roscoe met with the local sheriff, a grizzled man named Dobbs. Can you hold him on anything? Not unless the lady presses charges. Dobbs leaned back in his chair. And even then, it is his word against hers. No proof, no case. What if I told you? He threatened her. Did he? Roscoe hesitated. Not in so many words. Then my hands are tied. Dobbs shrugged. Best thing you can do is get her out of town. The further she is from him, the harder it is for him to make trouble. Roscoe left the sheriff's office with a plan forming. They would return to Bitter Valley, but not to Whisper Ranch. Not yet. They needed distance, time, and allies. He found Tessa at the edge of town, staring out at the plains. She looked small, fragile, and he hated it. Hated that Marcus had done this to her. We are leaving, he said. Tonight. She turned. Where? Does not matter. Somewhere he cannot follow. He took her hand. Trust me. I do. She squeezed his fingers. But running is not going to solve this. He will keep coming. I know. Roscoe's jaw tightened. But we are not running. We are regrouping. And then we are going to finish this. Permanently. They rode out, under cover of darkness. Just the two of them. Roscoe sent the crew back to Bitter Valley with instructions to spread the word that Tessa had sold the ranch. And moved on. A lie, but a useful one. Let Marcus chase shadows. They traveled hard for 2 days, cutting through back trails and dry washes. Roscoe knew the land, knew where to hide, where to find water. Tessa followed without complaint, her trust in him absolute. On the 3rd night, they camped in a box canyon with a single narrow entrance. Roscoe built a small fire and made coffee. Tessa sat beside him, exhausted but calm. "Where are we going?" she asked. "A place Marcus cannot follow." Roscoe handed her a cup. "A friend of mine runs a ranch near the Colorado border. He owes me a favor. We can stay there until this blows over. And if it does not blow over, then we make it blow over." He met her eyes. "I have been thinking. Marcus cannot press charges without proof. And he cannot get you arrested without a lawman willing to do it. So we find proof that he is the criminal. Turn the tables. How? You said you found a ledger. Where is it now?" "Hidden. In Philadelphia. I did not dare bring it. Can someone retrieve it?" Tessa frowned, thinking. "Maybe. I have a friend. Another doctor. She might still have access to my old apartment. Then we send her a telegram. Have her bring the ledger west. Once we have proof, we take it to a federal marshal. Let Marcus deal with the consequences." It was risky. But it was also the first real plan she had heard since Marcus appeared. "You really think it would work?" "I think it is worth trying." Roscoe set down his cup. "Because the alternative is you spend the rest of your life running. And I am not letting that happen." "Why?" She searched his face. "Why do you care so much?" "Because I love you." The words came out simple, honest, inevitable. "I do not know when it happened. Maybe in the river, maybe before, but it is true. And I am not walking away." Tessa's breath caught. Tears spilled over, and she did not try to stop them. "I love you too. I have been trying not to, but I do." "Then stop trying." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "We will figure this out. Together." She kissed him, and this time it was not desperate. It was sure. A promise, a beginning, a choice made freely. When they broke apart, Tessa felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, but it was not the only thing anymore. Now there was hope, and love, and a future she had not thought possible. They sent the telegram the next morning from a tiny outpost town. Roscoe paid extra to have it marked urgent. Then they waited. 3 days later, the reply came. Tessa's friend had the ledger. She would bring it west, but it would take 2 weeks, maybe 3. Roscoe read the telegram and nodded. "We have time. Let's use it." They rode to his friend's ranch, a sprawling spread nestled in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. The friend, a leathery man named Hank, asked no questions. He gave them a cabin, supplies, and privacy. For 2 weeks, Tessa and Roscoe lived like they were the only two people in the world. They worked the ranch, mended fences, tended horses. At night, they sat on the cabin porch and watched the stars. They talked about everything and nothing. They made plans. They fell deeper in love. It was the happiest Tessa had been in years, and the most terrifying, because she knew it could not last. Marcus was still out there, and the ledger was still 2 weeks away. On the 15th day, a rider came, not Tessa's friend, a stranger, carrying a message from Silver Creek. Marcus had left town. No one knew where he went. Tessa's stomach dropped. He is coming here. We do not know that. Roscoe's voice was calm, but his hand moved to his gun. Could be he gave up. Went back east. You do not believe that. No. He met her eyes. But I am ready for him. Are you? Tessa thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago. Scared, broken, running. Then she thought about the woman she was now. Stronger, braver, loved. Yes. Good. Because he is not taking you. Not while I am alive. The storm hit that night. Not rain, but wind and dust, tearing across the valley like a living thing. Tessa and Roscoe stayed in the cabin, watching the darkness through the window. And then, through the howl of the wind, they heard hoofbeats. Roscoe was on his feet instantly, gun in hand. Stay inside. No. Tessa grabbed her medical bag. If this is Marcus, I am facing him. No more hiding. Roscoe looked at her, then nodded. All right. But you stay behind me. They stepped onto the porch. The wind tore at their clothes, dust stinging their eyes. A rider emerged from the storm, hunched against the wind. Not Marcus. A woman, small and determined, clutching a leather satchel. Tessa gasped. Clara. Her friend dismounted and stumbled toward the cabin. Tessa ran to meet her, pulling her inside. Clara collapsed into a chair, soaking wet despite the dust storm. I brought it. She held out the satchel. The ledger. But Tessa, you need to know. Marcus knows I have it. He tried to stop me in Denver. I barely got away. Roscoe took the satchel and opened it. Inside was a worn account book, pages filled with dates, names, amounts. Proof. Undeniable proof of everything Marcus had done. This is enough, he said. We can take this to a marshal. End this. But Clara shook her head. It is not that simple. Marcus has a warrant for Tessa's arrest. He convinced a judge in Philadelphia that she is a thief. If you turn him in, he turns her in. And without a lawyer, she would not stand a chance. Tessa felt the walls closing in. So we are trapped. If we use the ledger, I go to jail. If we do not, Marcus gets away with everything. Not necessarily. Roscoe closed the ledger. We just need leverage. Something that makes Marcus back off. Something he wants more than revenge. Like what? His freedom. Roscoe's eyes were hard. We offer him a deal. He drops the warrant. We do not turn the ledger over to the federal marshal. He walks away. We walk away. Clean slate. Tessa stared at him. You would let him go? After everything he did? I would let him go to keep you safe. Roscoe's voice was steady. That is the trade. Your freedom for his. It is not justice, but it is survival. Clara looked between them. He would not take that deal. He is too proud. Then we make him take it. Roscoe stood. Where is he now? I do not know. Clara shook her head. But he is close. He has been following me since Denver. Then he will be here soon. Roscoe checked his gun. And when he arrives, we end this. The storm raged through the night. At dawn, it broke, leaving the valley still and washed clean. Roscoe stood on the porch, watching the horizon. Tessa joined him. Do you think he would come? I know he would. Roscoe did not look at her. Men like him do not give up. They push until something breaks. Our job is to make sure it is not you. And if he does not take the deal, then I do what I have to. His voice was flat. I am not letting him take you, Tessa. No matter what it costs. She took his hand. I do not want you to have to kill him. Neither do I. He squeezed her fingers. But I would. Without hesitation. You need to know that. She did. And it should have scared her. But it did not. Because she knew Roscoe. Knew that violence was not his first choice. But it was an option he would not shy away from if it meant protecting someone he loved. I know, she said softly. And I love you for it. They stood together, waiting. And then, just after noon, Marcus rode into view. He dismounted slowly, his expression calm and cold. Tessa, I see you have made friends. Roscoe stepped forward. This is private property. You are trespassing. Marcus smiled. I have a legal warrant for her arrest. That gives me the right to be here. Not out here, it does not. Roscoe's hand stayed near his gun. And you are not taking her. Marcus's smile faded. You are making a mistake, cowboy. I can have a dozen lawmen here by tomorrow. You cannot protect her from the law. Maybe not. Roscoe pulled the ledger from his coat. But I can destroy you with this. Marcus went very still. Where did you get that? Does not matter. What matters is what is inside. Proof of fraud, forgery, extortion. Enough to put you in prison for 20 years. Maybe more. Maybe more. That is stolen property. No. Roscoe's voice was hard. It is evidence. And unless you want it handed over to a federal marshal, you are going to take a deal. What deal? You drop the warrant. You go back to Philadelphia and leave Tessa alone. In exchange, this ledger disappears. You get to walk away. Clean slate. Marcus laughed. You expect me to trust you? No. Roscoe stepped closer. I expect you to be smart. Because if you push this, you lose everything. Your reputation, your freedom, your life. Is revenge really worth that? Marcus looked at Tessa. She met his gaze without flinching. For the first time, she saw him clearly. Not as the man she thought she loved, but as the small, cruel person he had always been. You do not get to control me anymore, she said quietly. You do not get to decide my life. I am done running. And I am done being afraid of you. Marcus's jaw tightened. You stole from me. I took back what you stole from others. And I would do it again. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Marcus looked at the ledger in Roscoe's hand. His shoulders sagged, just slightly. Fine. Drop the ledger in the nearest well, and I will send a telegram to Philadelphia. The warrant disappears. Not good enough. Roscoe held up the ledger. You write the telegram now. In front of us. And you ride out of here within the hour. If I ever see you again, the ledger goes to the marshal. Understood. Marcus's face twisted with rage. But he nodded. Understood. Roscoe handed him paper and a pencil. Marcus wrote the telegram, his handwriting sharp and angry. When he finished, Roscoe read it, then nodded. Good enough. Marcus mounted his horse. He looked at Tessa one last time. You will regret this. No. She lifted her chin. I would not. He rode away, disappearing into the valley. Tessa watched until he was gone, then turned to Roscoe. Is it really over? Yes. He pulled her into his arms. It is over. She buried her face in his chest and let the relief wash over her. For the first time in months, she could breathe, could think about the future without fear, could imagine a life that was hers, built on her own terms. Thank you, she whispered. Always. He kissed the top of her head. Now let's go home. They returned to Bitter Valley 3 days later. Whisper Ranch looked the same, but everything felt different. Tessa walked through the house, seeing it with new eyes, not as a hiding place, but as a home. A beginning. Roscoe leaned against the doorframe, watching her. What are you thinking? That I want to stay. She turned to face him, not just at the ranch, but here. With you. You sure? He smiled faintly. It is a hard life. Cattle, storms, long winters. Not exactly what you trained for. Neither was running. She crossed to him, taking his hands. But I am done with that. I want to build something. With you. If you will have me. If I would have you. Roscoe laughed. A real, unguarded sound. Tessa Bennett, I would marry you tomorrow if you said yes. Then ask me. He pulled her close, his expression serious. Marry me. Not because you are running, or because you are scared, but because you want a life with me. Cattle drives, hard work, bad coffee, and all. Yes. She kissed him, fierce and certain. Yes. I want that. I want you. I want this life. All of it. They were married a week later, by a traveling preacher who happened through town. The ceremony was short, simple, and perfect. Tessa wore her best dress. Roscoe wore his cleanest shirt. Hank and Clara stood as witnesses, grinning like fools. Afterward, they stood on the porch at sunset, watching the light turn the valley gold. Roscoe wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Happy? He asked. Yes. She leaned back against him. More than I ever thought possible. Good. He kissed her temple. Because you are stuck with me now. She smiled. I can live with that. And she could. For the first time since Philadelphia, Tessa Bennett, now Tessa Carver, felt like she belonged. Not to a place, or a profession, or a past she could not escape, but to herself. And to the man who had seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. Together, they would build a life. Hard, honest, and real.